बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम इन्नल्लाहा व मलाइकतहु यसल्लूना अलन नबी या अय्युहल्लज़ीना आमनू सल्लु अलैहि व सल्लिमू तस्लीमा अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मदिन व आलि मुहम्मद। बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम अल्लाहुम्मा इन्नी असअलुका तवज्जुह इलैका बिनबिय्यिका नबीर रहमा मुहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वालिही या अबुल क़ासिम या रसूलल्लाह या इमाम रहमा या सय्यदना व मौलाना इन्ना तवज्जहना वस्तशफ़ाना व तवस्सलना बिका इलल्लाहि व क़द्दमनाका बैन यदै हाजातिना या वजीहान इंदल्लाह इश्फ़ा लना इंदल्लाह या अबुल हसन या अमीरुल मोमिनीन या अली इब्न अबी तालिब या हुज्जतल्लाहि अला खल्क़िही या सय्यदना व मौलाना इन्ना तवज्जहना वस्तशफ़अना व तवस्सलना बिका इलल्लाहि व क़द्दमनाका बैन यदै हाजातिना या वजीहान इंदल्लाह इश्फ़ा लना इंदल्लाह या फ़ातिमतुज़्ज़हरा या बिन्त मुहम्मद या क़ुर्रत ऐन रसूल या सय्यदतना व मौलातना इन्ना तवज्जहना वस्तशफ़अना व तवस्सलना बिका इलल्लाहि व क़द्दमनाका बैन यदै हाजातिना या वजीहतन इंदल्लाह इश्फ़ई लना इंदल्लाह या अबा मुहम्मद या हसन इब्न अली अय्युहल मुज्तबा या इब्न रसूलिल्लाह या हुज्जतल्लाहि अला खल्क़िही या सय्यदना व मौलाना इन्ना तवज्जहना वस्तशफ़अना व तवस्सलना बिका इलल्लाहि व क़द्दमनाका बैन यदै हाजातिना या वजीहान इंदल्लाह इश्फ़ा लना इंदल्लाह या अबा अब्दुल्लाह या हुसैन इब्न अली अय्युहश शहीद या इब्न रसूलिल्लाह या हुज्जतल्लाहि अला खल्क़िही या सय्यदना व मौलाना इन्ना तवज्जहना वस्तशफ़अना व तवस्सलना बिका इलल्लाहि व क़द्दमनाका बैन यदै हाजातिना या वजीहान इंदल्लाह इश्फ़ा लना इंदल्लाह या अबुल हसन या अली इब्न हुसैन या ज़ैनुल आबिदीन या इब्न रसूलिल्लाह या हुज्जतल्लाहि अला खल्क़िही या सय्यदना व मौलाना इन्ना तवज्जहना वस्तशफ़अना व तवस्सलना बिका इलल्लाहि व क़द्दमनाका बैन यदै हाजातिना या वजीहान इंदल्लाह इश्फ़ा लना इंदल्लाह या अबा जाफ़र या मोहम्मद बिन अली अय्युहल बाक़िर या इब्न रसूलिल्लाह या हुज्जतल्लाहि अला खल्क़िही या सय्यदना व मौलाना इन्ना तवज्जहना वस्तशफ़अना व तवस्सलना बिका इलल्लाहि व क़द्दमनाका बैन यदै हाजातिना या वजीहान इंदल्लाह इश्फ़ा लना इंदल्लाह या अबा अब्दुल्लाह या जाफ़र बिन मोहम्मद अय्युहस सादिक़ या इब्न रसूलिल्लाह या हुज्जतल्लाहि अला खल्क़िही या सय्यदना व मौलाना इन्ना तवज्जहना वस्तशफ़अना व तवस्सलना बिका इलल्लाहि व क़द्दमनाका बैन यदै हाजातिना या वजीहान इंदल्लाह इश्फ़ा लना इंदल्लाह या अबल हसन या मूसा इब्न जाफ़र अय्युहल काज़िम या इब्न रसूलिल्लाह या हुज्जतल्लाहि अला खल्क़िही या सय्यदना व मौलाना इन्ना तवज्जहना वस्तशफ़ाना व तवस्सलना बिका इलल्लाहि व क़द्दमनाका बैन यदै हाजातिना या वजीहान इंदल्लाह इश्फ़ा लना इंदल्लाह या अबल हसन या अली इब्न मूसा अय्युहर रिज़ा या इब्न रसूलिल्लाह या हुज्जतल्लाहि अला खल्क़िही या सय्यदना व मौलाना इन्ना तवज्जहना वस्तशफ़ाना व तवस्सलना बिका इलल्लाहि व क़द्दमनाका बैन यदै हाजातिना या वजीहान इंदल्लाह इश्फ़ा लना इंदल्लाह या अबा जाफ़र या मुहम्मद बिन अली अय्युहत तक़ियुल जवाद या इब्न रसूलिल्लाह या हुज्जतल्लाहि अला खल्क़िही या सय्यदना व मौलाना इन्ना तवज्जहना वस्तशफ़ाना व तवस्सलना बिका इलल्लाहि व क़द्दमनाका बैन यदै हाजातिना या वजीहान इंदल्लाह इश्फ़ा लना इंदल्लाह या अबल हसन या अली बिन मोहम्मद अय्युहल हादियुन नक़ी या इब्न रसूलिल्लाह या हुज्जतल्लाहि अला खल्क़िही या सय्यदना व मौलाना इन्ना तवज्जहना वस्तशफ़ाना व तवस्सलना बिका इलल्लाहि व क़द्दमनाका बैन यदै हाजातिना या वजीहान इंदल्लाह इश्फ़ा लना इंदल्लाह या अबा मोहम्मद या हसन बिन अली अय्युहज़्ज़कीयुल अस्करी या इब्न रसूलिल्लाह या हुज्जतल्लाहि अला खल्क़िही या सय्यदना व मौलाना इन्ना तवज्जहना वस्तशफ़ाना व तवस्सलना बिका इलल्लाहि व क़द्दमनाका बैन यदै हाजातिना या वजीहान इंदल्लाह इश्फ़ा लना इंदल्लाह या वसीअल हसन वल खलफ़िल हुज्जह अय्युहल क़ाइमुल मुंतज़िरुल महदी या इब्न रसूलिल्लाह या हुज्जतल्लाहि अला खल्क़िही या सय्यदना व मौलाना इन्ना तवज्जहना वस्तशफ़ाना व तवस्सलना बिका इलल्लाहि व क़द्दमनाका बैन यदै हाजातिना या वजीहान इंदल्लाह इश्फ़ा लना इंदल्लाह या वजीहान इंदल्लाह इश्फ़ा लना इंदल्लाह या वजीहान इंदल्लाह इश्फ़ा लना इंदल्लाह या सादाती या मवाली इन्नी तवज्जहतु बिकुम अइम्मती व उद्दती लियौमि फ़क़री व हाजती इलल्लाह व तवस्सलतु बिकुम इलल्लाह वस्तशफ़अतु बिकुम इलल्लाह फ़शफ़ऊ ली इंदल्लाह व अस्तनक़िज़ूनी मिन ज़ुनूबी इंदल्लाह फ़ इन्नकुम वसीलती इलल्लाह व बिहुब्बिकुम व बिक़ुर्बिकुम अर्जू नजात मिनल्लाह फ़कूनू इंदल्लाहि रजाई या सादाती या औलिया अल्लाह सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि अजमईन व लानल्लाहु आदाअल्लाहि ज़ालिमीहिम मिनल अव्वलीना वल आखिरीना आमीन रब्बल आलमीन अल्लाहुम्मा सल्लि अला मुहम्मद।
पर मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद सलावात। बारे दीगर नारे सलावात। बर हबीब खुदा इमाम ज़माना बुलंद तर सलावात। आऊज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम, बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। ब्रदर्स एंड सिस्टर्स, ख़वातीन व हज़रात, अस्सलामु अलैकुम व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातुहू। As you know, tonight we celebrate the auspicious occasion, the holy birth of our 11th Imam, Imam Hasan Askari alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali wa Muhammad. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept our ibadah here tonight. Inshallah, आप सबकी तौफीकात में इजाफ़ा फरमाए और हमारी इबादत को इसको कबूल फरमाए. As always, we will start with the Urdu poetry to honor our 11th Imam, followed by the English lecture by our very own Maulana Syed Rizwan Rizvi Sahab. So with that, ek salawat padhiye ala Muhammad wa ale Muhammad. चार मिसरे हैं, मुलाहिज़ा फरमाइए कि दुरूद व सलाम आप पर 100 बार अस्करी, दुरूद व सलाम आप पर 100 बार अस्करी, और हू बहू अली का है किरदार अस्करी। और इमरान आज मोमिनों को ईद मुबारक, इमरान आज मोमिनों को ईद मुबारक, ज़मीन पर आए हैं मेरे सरदार अस्करी। इसी के साथ मैं दावत देता हूँ जनाब हसन जाफरी साहब से कि वो आएँ और मौला की बारगाह में अपना हदिया पेश करें। बर मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद सलावत।
तमाम मोमिनीन मोमिनात को जो यहाँ पे और ऑनलाइन सुन रहे हैं, सबको इमाम हसन अस्करी की विलादत की बहुत बहुत मुबारकबाद। एक दुरूद भेजिए मोहम्मद वाले। जनाब नासिर आगा के कलाम से चंद अशार आप लोगों की नज़र करना चाहते हैं। एक दुरूद भेजिए मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद। जो वाजिब है मुझ पर, जो वाजिब है मुझ पर, वही कर रहा हूँ। सनाए हसन अस्करी कर रहा हूँ, जो वाजिब है मुझ पर। आमदे हसन अस्करी की खुशी में, आमदे हसन अस्करी की खुशी में, मैं हर गम से खुद को बरी कर रहा हूँ। सनाए हसन अस्करी कर रहा हूँ, जो वाजिब है मुझ पर। एक दुरूद भेज दे मोहम्मद वाले। वही कर रहा हूँ। सनाए हसन अस्करी कर रहा हूँ, जो वाजिब है मुझ पर। सनाए हसन अस्करी का है मतलब, सनाए हसन अस्करी का है मतलब, सनाए नबियो अली कर रहा हूँ। सनाए नबियो अली कर रहा हूँ, सनाए हसन अस्करी कर रहा हूँ, जो वाजिब है मुझ पर। हो मदफन मेरा सामरा की ज़मीं में, हो मदफन मेरा सामरा की ज़मीं में। दुआ रब से ये हर घड़ी कर रहा हूँ, सनाए हसन अस्करी कर रहा हूँ, जो वाजिब है मुझ पर। जो हुब्बे हसन अस्करी दिल में रखे, जो हुब्बे हसन अस्करी दिल में रखे, उसी शख्स से दोस्ती कर रहा हूँ, उसी शख्स से दोस्ती कर रहा हूँ, सनाए हसन अस्करी कर रहा हूँ, जो वाजिब है मुझ पर। और लुटा कर ये जान अपनी इब्ने नकी पर, लुटा कर ये जान अपनी इब्ने नकी पर, हयात अपनी मैं दायमी कर रहा हूँ, हयात अपनी मैं दायमी कर रहा हूँ, सनाए हसन अस्करी कर रहा हूँ, जो वाजिब है मुझ पर। और आखिरी शेर है, बना कर ये गुलदस्ता शेरों का नासिर, बना कर ये गुलदस्ता शेरों का नासिर, मैं नज़रे हसन अस्करी कर रहा हूँ, मैं नज़रे हसन अस्करी कर रहा हूँ, सनाए हसन अस्करी कर रहा हूँ, जो वाजिब है मुझ पर वही कर रहा हूँ, सनाए हसन अस्करी कर रहा हूँ।
जज़ाकल्लाह हसन भाई, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। ये थे जनाब हसन जाफरी साहब, जो मैं टू बी वेरी फ्रैंक आज रात को 2-3 और लोग थे जिनको बुलावा दिया गया था, वो नहीं आ पाए। और माशाल्लाह से हसन भाई ने हमेशा लास्ट मिनट ही इज़ ऑलवेज़ हमेशा आए हैं, हमेशा जब भी कोई ज़रूरत पड़े। तो बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया। मौला आपकी इस इबादत को कबूल फरमाए और मौला आपको सलामत रखे। एक सलवात पढ़िए अला मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद। इसी के साथ अब मैं दरख्वास्त करता हूँ जनाब ज़िया हैदर साहब से कि वो आएँ और मौला की बारगाह में अपना हदिया पेश करें। बर मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद सलवात।
इमाम हसन अस्करी अलैहिस्सलाम की विलादत के सिलसिले में चंद अशार हैं। लश्कर वहदत इमाम अस्करी, दीन की क़ुव्वत इमाम अस्करी, नाज करता है खुदाए लम यज़ल, आप वो आयत इमाम अस्करी। आदमी को खुल्द में ले जाएगी आपकी उल्फत इमाम अस्करी। आसियों के वास्ते बस आप हैं बाइसे रहमत इमाम अस्करी। आपके दम से ज़माने में बढ़ी दीन की शौकत इमाम अस्करी। है दिले कुफ़ार पर छाई हुई आपकी हैबत इमाम अस्करी। आपके नक्शे कफ़े पाके तुफ़ैल मिल गई जन्नत इमाम अस्करी।
जज़ाकल्लाह। ये थे जनाब ज़िया हैदर साहब। इससे पहले कि मैं मौलाना को दावत दूँ, 4 मिसरे हैं अगर इजाज़त हो। अर्ज़ है कि अंधेरे डरने लगे रोशनी की आमद है, अंधेरे डरने लगे रोशनी की आमद है, गिरे हैं सजदे में सूरज वली की आमद है। और कहा मुहिब्बों ने मौला नकी मुबारक हो, कहा मुहिब्बों ने मौला नकी मुबारक हो, फलक से आज हसन अस्करी आमद है। एंड विद दैट, इसी के साथ अब मैं दरख्वास्त करता हूँ, आई इनवाइट our Hujjatul Islam Maulana Syed Rizwan Rizvi Sahib to come up tonight and to address the congregation on this auspicious occasion. Please welcome him with salawat ala Muhammad wa ale Muhammad. Bare digar nare salawat.
Before I start, let's recognize the sponsors for tonight's session. It's Mr. and Mrs. Nisar Raza. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to accept their sponsorship tonight and always, and let's recite a Surah Fatiha for their deceased relatives as well as yours. Usually Mustafa Bhai makes the announcements. I guess we forgot to ask him. Thursday we will have the commemoration on the wafat of Bibi Masuma Khum Salamullah Alayha. Inshallah, that program will start at 7:30 with the Salatul Isha. Do attend that program. Majlis inshallah will take place right after the Amal of Shab-e Jum'ah. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله الذي قصرت عن رؤيته أبصار الناظرين وعجزت عن نعته أوهام الفاسفين الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين خاتم النبيين أبي القاسم محمد وأهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا أما بعد فقد قال الله تبارك وتعالى وقوله الحق وهو أصدق القائلين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن للمتقين عند ربهم جنات النعيم أفنجعل المسلمين كالمجرمين ما لكم كيف تحكمون صلوات محمد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Greetings and felicitations on this very auspicious occasion, which marks the prosperous birth of our 11th Imam, father of Imam of our time, Imam Zamana, Ajalallahu Ta'ala Farajahu Sharif, Imam Hasan al-Askari, al-Zaki al-Askari alayhi salatu wassalam. 232 after Hijrah, on 8th day of Rabi Thani, the prosperous birth of this Imam takes place, and 260th year after Hijrah, on 8th of Rabi al-Awwal, is the date of the martyrdom of 11th Imam. His father is Imam Ali al-Naqi, our 10th Imam, and his mother's name is mentioned as Hudayth or Hudaysa or Susan. Imam alayhi salatu wasalam lived in the time of 5 or 6 Khulafai Abbasi. And you can tell that from the time that Imam assumed the responsibilities of Imamat, he was 22 years old, and he was on the mansab or the seat of Imamat for 6 years until his Shahadat in the year 260. Imam lived in a time in a garrison town known as Samarra, where, of course, Imam was under constant surveillance as far as the Hukumat-e-Waqt was concerned. Imam alayhi salatu wasalam, someone's phone is being located. Maybe you can turn it off. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Imam lived in a very difficult time, in a sense that he had to counter and he had to deal with the similar situation that was dealt in the time of Prophet Nabi Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. Imam is given the task of protecting Imam of our time, the 12th Imam. And he's also living in a time where there are all sorts of doubts on the minds of the people, not only about the future Imam, but even about the current Imam. A lot of people are questioning whether this is the Imam or not. There's a person who came from Medina, because, of course, you're looking at a time when communications are not as fast as we live in today's world. Not knowing that who the Imam is, and his intention is, he makes dua that, oh Allah, I want to find out that the Imam that we follow is the right Imam, is the one or not. And in that sense, he comes to this place in Samarra where to meet Imam alayhi salatu wasalam. And as he walks and waits, because Imam was being summoned by the Khalifa of the time, not knowing Imam, because he hasn't seen Imam in person, Imam walks by this man and he says, "Oh, Fulan ibn Fulan, oh someone whose name is this, son of so-and-so, you have come looking for me, your father's name is this, your mother's name is this, and you have traveled all this distance to come and find out the truth." And then Imam walked away to the Khalifa of the time who had summoned Imam, while this man is in complete astonishment that who was this man who just came and spoke to me like this. And then when Imam was done with the Khalifa, Imam walked back to this man and he says, "Now do you have reached the haqq and truth that you've come to sought your Imam and you have found him?" And that man realized that this is the Imam that I was coming to look for. Knowing the fact that he has never seen Imam, he has not disclosed this information to anyone, and Imam is the one who approaches him to go ahead and satisfy him that yes, I am the Imam of the time that you have come looking for. Are you satisfied now with the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Do you know who the Imam of your time is? That man said, yes, absolutely, because this ilm would not be with anyone except the one who is himself the Imam. Salawat bi Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Very quick note in regards to these ayat that I recited for you. before I get into some of the discussions, stories about our 11th Imam. I recited these 3 ayat from Surah Qalam, chapter number 68 from the Holy Quran, ayat number 34, 35, and 36. It says, Inna lilmuttaqina inda rabbihim jannatin na'im. Indeed, for the pious near Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is jannatin na'im, the paradise of bliss. Afanaj'alul muslimina kal mujrimin. He says, shall we treat those who submit to us equally to those who are, or who treat and who are the ones who are guilty? Should we treat them equally? أَفَنَجْعَلُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ كَالْمُجْرِمِينَ. Meaning, if you have 2 people, one who submits to our command and the one who does not submit to our command, should we treat these 2 individuals equally? مَا لَكُمْ كَيْفَ تَحْكُمُونَ. What is wrong with you? What is the matter with you? How do you judge? Tafsir of these ayat in tarbiyat and guidance, along with warning, there should be incentive. When you come here for these sort of events, when you come to a majlis, when you come to a jashan, when you attend these programs, there should be incentive for you. And I'm not going to say that, the incentive is, for example, some sort of food item that drives you to come and attend these jashan or majalis. No, that is something which is part of the jashan or the majlis. That walking away, going away, leaving, you will get some food to go home with. That is the tabarruk. Of course, the tabarruk would be something simple, but yet because it's associated with the jashan of Imam, the tabarruk is given some sort of value. And I'll give you proof of that. When you go for the ziyarat of Imam Hussein, when you go to the ziyarat of Gharibatus, Imam al-Rada, and you get to the restaurant which belongs to the haram of Imam Raza, and you get to eat over there. And when you eat over there, when you're over there, how much do you care for the food that is given to you? And in fact, you and I may not have the same worth and value of that food, but you know who does? The people who are waiting outside. They're saying, you got something from inside? They can get the same food. It's just that the food that is associated with Imam al-Rada and the dastarkhan of Imam al-Rada, even if it's simple as a bread and salt, it has value in your eyes. Is it not? Those of you who have gone for the ziyarat, you make an effort. Although you can go to the best of the restaurants in Mashhad. The beautiful restaurants with beautiful food, then we visited, and there exists over there. But you choose the tabarruk of Gharibatus, Imam al-Rada, because it belongs to the dastarkhan of Imam alayhi. Why? Because that's not a food that may be of your liking. They may not be something which you really love as far as the food is concerned. But the fact that it has association with Imam, it gives that value to that tabarruk. The word tabarruk itself, it comes from what? Barakah. When you say, inshallah, you'll have tabarruk when you leave, tabarruk comes from the word barakah, meaning it'll give access to you. It'll give more to you. So there's an incentive when you come to majlis. Now I'm not saying tabarruk is the incentive that you come to the majlis. Because if that was the case, then you can easily complain, well, tabarruk is not up to par, tabarruk is not as great. But that's not the reason why you come to majlis azam. You come to majlis azam because you get another type of tabarruk. And that is the spiritual food for thought. And that is the tabarruk that you are waiting to learn and take away from. Similarly, the usloob of the ayat of Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He speaks about it, the tafsir is that when you're giving tarbiyat, when you're guiding people, when you're saying to them, do this and do this and don't do this and don't do that, you need to give them incentive alongside with it. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala expects something, when He says, Innal muslimina fi jannatin na'im, inna lil muttaqina jannatin na'im inda rabbihim. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He asks you to become muttaqi, when He asks you to submit to the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there's an incentive for you. He said, we have these gardens of bliss for you. There's never-ending food and drink available there for you. There are all of these other things that are available in these gardens of bliss for you. And know that yes, those who submit to our will are not equal to those who do not submit to our will. Just the same way you don't consider these two people to be equal in this world, we don't consider them to be equal in the hereafter as well. So the gardens of paradise are filled with the ni'mat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, contrary to the gardens of this world. Sometimes we think that the gardens of this world is something which should be going after. And garden is just being used as a symbol over here. Because garden is something which is, husnul manzar. When you go over there, you rest over there, you relax over there, you're with your family over there, you're having, time which is relaxation. You're not worried about anything which is worldly. That's why you go to the garden. Now I know some people who go to the parks and the gardens and they bring their work along with them. They bring their laptops over there with them, or they're using their phone over there even. But no, you're going there primarily to get away from all of these things. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala uses the same thing. The gardens and the paradise are filled with all of these ni'mat that you expect in this world. But what we give you over there is beyond your understanding. You will never be able to understand what is given over there. And with that said, retribution, thawab and adab should be based on adalat and the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, أَفَنَجْعَلُ الْمُسْلِمِينَ كَالْمُجْرِمِينَ. We don't consider these two to be equal. Therefore, our reward will go to those who submit to our will, and our adab will go to those who are considered to be the criminals and mujrimeen. You know why it's important to do the right tafsir of Quran? Because Quran is kalam-e-ilahi. And people try to use the ayat of Quran to their advantage. These Taliban and these ISIS, when ISIS was, making some headlines, about 10 years ago, and going on rampant killing of other fellow Muslims, and their ideas and ideology which is derived from the Wahhabi mentality of grave worship is haram and all of those other things. You ask, where are this ISIS now? When Muslims are suffering, where have these people gone? They were there to go ahead and take life of other Muslims when, according to their belief, that these Muslims were doing what? Idol worshipping by going to the graves. They were destroying the masajid. They were destroying the graves of Hujr ibn Adi and Hazrat Yunus and other prophets in Iraq. They did all of that destruction because it doesn't fit their ideology. And then now the world needs, or the Muslim Ummah needs, where are you? So that makes you figure and that makes you understand that this is something which is a political stance where people use these people for their own advantage. Now with that said, what did ISIS was saying? What was the ISIS? They were saying they were using the ayat of Quran to their advantage. For example, they'll use the ayat of Quran that anyone who does this, is mahdurud dam, meaning their blood is halal for you to shed. Although Quran doesn't say that. But they use the word infidel used in Quran, which attacks by saying that those who are unbelievers, disbelievers, those who are infidel, O Prophet, run after them, kill them until they're submissive. There's ayat of Quran in there. Surah Tawbah, there's ayat of Quran that says that. O Rasul, run after these people, kill them until they're submissive. Very harsh, right? You say, why would Quran tell us something like this? These ISIS, they use the same ayat to justify their killings, to justify what they were doing, the atrocities that they were committing against humanity. They were killing, rampant killing of other Muslims in Syria that happened for many, many years with support of some big governments. But with that said, they were getting these ideas from Quran. Now, in their mind, they think that they are doing what is completely Quranic and Islamic, while they're duped into believing that what you're doing is correct Islamically. You know what happened? Two birds with one stone. These people who now became the face of Muslims, the terrorists, they are giving a bad name to Islam. They have highlighted that these ayat exist in Quran without proper interpretation. Now people start searching. If you're hearing this ayat for the first time tonight, you might wonder as well, is Maulana correct in saying that there's an ayat in Quran which says, "Oh Prophet, run after these infidels, kill them until they're submissive"? You'll probably go and Google this or use ChatGPT. It'll give you the ayat number and it'll give you the address of the ayat. Yes, the ayat is there. They use it to their advantage. Now, of course, you don't have the knowledge. Any layman whose field is not this deen and madhab and tafsir, their knowledge is limited about it as well. They're going to take this ayat to its words and that's how they're going to treat it. And what it does, it gives a bad name to religion. It gives a bad name to Islam. And it shows how barbaric these people are, and their Quranic teachings are also similar. This Quran, which they believe now, forget about the atheists who don't believe in God. So they don't even believe that this is the word of Allah. But those who believe in some sort of deity and God, they say the God of Muslims is cruel. See, the God of Muslims is cruel. He's not a peace-loving God. And therefore, you'll hear rhetoric which is negative toward Islam, negative towards Quran. Quran burning started. People started burning Quran. That this book has things which are against the humanity. This could not be the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All that came about. That is due to primarily lack of understanding about the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Although we live in advanced age where, as I was mentioning and I alluded to, ChatGPT is a very powerful tool. I urge that if you ever stumble over an ayat of Quran where you can't make sense of it, type it in ChatGPT. And if you don't have access to an alim, a scholar, to explain that ayat to you, type that ayat in ChatGPT and ask for tafsir of that ayat. It'll do justice. It'll tell you what this ayat means, why it was revealed, what is the purpose behind it. It'll do some sort of justice, either from the Sunni sources or the Shia sources. But it'll do justice to that ayat. But taking that ayat out of context is what disservice to Islam is being done. And now you see this animosity that increases against Muslims. To the extent that in the issue of Palestine, you see how the people and the governments that are not even involved in this, they're speaking ill against it. Why? Because the association with the religion of Islam. Oh, these Muslims there, that's what they do. They're barbaric. That's what their book teaches them. They're terrorists to the core, and so on and so forth. That is something. And then you feel the fear as well. When you walk around, when you're at your workplace, corporate places, and colleges and campuses and universities, there's a fear. There's a fear coming to the masjid. There's a fear coming to the houses of worship. Why? You never know what's going to happen. This is where you look at if the ayat of Quran is misrepresented. You know, similar thing, this is not something new. This is something which has been happening since the time of Imams. But Imams had the courage to go ahead and clarify that. So there existed a person in the time of our 11th Imam, Biname Ishaq Kindi. He was a philosopher. He started compiling a book called Tanaquzat al-Quran, the contradictions that exist in Quran. Now, of course, Imam hears about this, and Imam can easily rebuke and say, well, this is wrong. You know what Imam does? Imam asks one of his students to get close to your ustad. How come you never challenge your ustad that he's collecting a book where he's preparing a book where he's collecting ayat which are contradictory? How come you don't challenge your ustad? Are you not Muslim? The student said, of course we're Muslim, but how can we challenge our ustad? He's got more knowledge than us. Imam said, okay, I'll tell you something that you ask him. He said, what? He said he's compiling a book, collecting verses which are contradictory to one another. For example, I'll give you an example of two verses that may be contradictory to one another. You say, well, is it even a true possibility that there's ayat of Quran that go against each other? There are a few ayat like that. One ayat, for example, in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says that Ala bi dhikrillahi tatma'innul qulub. With the dhikr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, hearts are at ease. There is another ayat in Quran which says, Innamal mu'minun idha dhukirallah wajalat qulubuhum. Mu'min is someone when Allah's zikr is done, they start trembling. So what is it in these two ayat? What do you find? One ayah says, with the zikr of Allah, you are at peace. Another ayah says, with the zikr of Allah, you are what? Scared. Being peaceful and being scared, being at ease or being in difficulty, there are two opposites. Meaning what? These two ayat are what? They are contradictory to one another. And there are many examples like this. At one place Allah says that Jahannam is a widespread place. So humongous that you can throw into it anything that you want and it'll never be filled. But then another place in Quran it says, Makanan dayyaqa. It's a very tight place. So what? Hold on, make up your mind. Is it a wide place or is it a tight place? As far as I'm concerned, these two ayat are what? Contradictory to one another. So Ishaq Kindi was doing the same thing. So his student, Imam tells him, why don't you go ahead and question your Ustad, your teacher? Why is he compiling a book like this? He said, he must have good reasons. He said, why don't you ask him a question, which I'll tell you what to ask. Because you think, of course, you're not qualified to ask him. Imam says, when you get close to him, when you become his confidant, when you become someone he can share and he can trust, just don't be in his class of 50, 60 people and then randomly raise a question. No, get close to him. When he listens to you, when he cares for you, then ask him this question. And then Imam told him what to ask. He said, go up to your Ustad and ask him, these ayat which you consider them contradictory to one another, is it based on your understanding or is it what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has intended? Well, I'll give you an example. I'll put away my notes, inshallah I'll use this another time. I'm giving you a lecture here, although I'm not giving a lecture, I'm just sharing some thoughts with you. I might be saying some things, but I'm not guaranteeing your understanding of what you take from my speech. I might say something, and you might take something else out of it. I might say, well, eating lobster is haram. And you might get out of my speech that Maulana said eating lobster is okay. I don't know. Maybe my words were not clear enough. I might have said, for example, taking care of your family is obligatory. You might drive something else out of it. You might take something else away from it. And that's quite a possibility. Because of your understanding of what is being said from the mimbar, and my ability to deliver that, maybe I'm not powerful enough or clear enough, and I'm not speaking with clarity to deliver the message properly. All these things could be the factor that when you walk away from here, you have a different understanding than what I intended to say to you. So when you have a different understanding of a word of a scholar or talib ilm or a speaker, who can then later on clarify his point. No, this is not what I meant, brother. I meant something else. You took it the wrong way. Then you think people are not going to have a wrong understanding about Quran? When they read the ayat of Quran, do they think they're all going to be thinking the same way? This is where we have an issue that if you take Quran from other than Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, Allah, you'll find contradictions in Quran. Although it is the most perfect word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, kalam hakim, and the wisdom is filled with it. But you will take from this Quran something according to your understanding. And that is not correct. Imam said to the student of Ishaq Kindi Go challenge your teacher that your understanding of Quran, is it your understanding or this is what Allah also meant? You derive from it this meaning. For example, from this formula you derived A equals to B. Is that what Allah also intended? He said, no, I don't know if this is what Allah intended. He said, if you don't know what Allah intended, then how can you go ahead and conclude that these two ayat are contradictory to one another? When Ishaq Kindi heard that from his student, he said, how did you come up with this? You have something here. He said, well, Ustad, I was thinking about your lectures and it came to my mind. He said, no, you're not at that level yet, where you can come up with something of this magnitude. Then the student said, yes, there's a man by the name Hasan ibn Ali al-Askari alayhi who gave me this information. Ishaq Kindi realizes, yes, that is the sulala of Rasulullah. That is the progeny of Rasulullah. Allah knows where to place his risalat. And yes, that person is someone who knows and has the knowledge of Quran better than anyone. Help me burn the work that I have compiled, because this is nothing but dalalat. This is nothing but keeping people away from haqq, and people will only be astray and gumrah by reading my material. Salawat Biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad wa. You know, Imam is someone whose mother I mentioned, and I'll conclude with this, is someone whose name is Hudayth or Hudaytha. And there are other names that are mentioned of this. She was amongst the ladies of this household who is considered to be fadila, knowledgeable. And the reason is that when the shahadat of our 11th Imam takes place, 2 years after the shahadat of Imam, a man comes to the house of Imam. And Hakima Khatun opens the door. He says, I have some questions. Who is the Imam of the Ummah now? She says, Hasan al-Askari's son, Imam al-Mahdi, who's in occultation right now. You can't see him. He's in ghaibat. Ghaibat is sughra, but he's in ghaibat. He said, who do we trust or who do we ask for our questions at this moment of difficulty? Because Imam is not accessible. You know what Hakima Khatun said? Imam Askari, before his wafat, he left his mother as the person to be referred to in case of the ghaibat of Imam Zamana. That man said, this is unprecedented. How can Imam leave, his mother to be his, inheritor, heir, as far as giving the masail fiqh is concerned? What is the precedent of this? Who has ever done this? Why did Imam do that? And is she capable, first of all? He said, number one, she's capable, because Imam of yours has chosen her to be that person. In the absence of Imam Zaman, she is the one to be referred to. She is more than capable because Imam chose her. And number two, it is not unprecedented. There's someone who did that before as well, and that was our third Imam, that before his shahadat, he made Bibi Zainab to be the one taking care of Imam of the time, which was Imam Sajjad, when he was sick, and she was the marja' of the people during the sickness and the illness of Imam Sajjad, and Imam Hasan al-Askari is following the footsteps of his grandfather and doing the same thing by trusting his mother. That's why she was known as the title of Jadda. Salawat Biji Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Of course, there are many such merits of Imam that we have seen throughout his life, the karamat that came from the 28 years of Imam's life, where it was constant struggle against the Khulafai Abbasi, but nonetheless, Imam did that which was unprecedented in the times of other Imams, and that was the similar situation of Hazrat Musa ﷺ, how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protected Hazrat Musa because Fir'aun was informed that a child will be born who will topple your government, who will destroy your government. Therefore, he went ahead on rampant killing of all the newborn babies. Same thing was being done in the time of the birth of our 12th Imam, but our 11th Imam made sure that he takes care of that by hiding our 12th Imam, by keeping the birth of our Imam in a way quiet that nobody in the household even knew. That's when the Wiladat of 12th Imam came near. He called upon Hakima Khatun to come. She did not know why she was being called for. She comes and she says, tonight we will need you because Narjis Khatun will be giving birth. She said, I don't see any signs of pregnancy. He said, that is the miracle of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because the person who will be born is the Hujjat of Allah who will remain on this earth. These Abbasids know that the child who is going to be born in my family is someone yamla'ul arda qistan wa adla kama muli'at zulman wa jawra. He will come and he will fill this earth with adl and justice the way it will be filled with injustice and zulm and oppression. That is the wujud mubarak of Imam Zamana Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif. Inshallah, I'll take this opportunity and throughout the week to share more and more merits of Imam and the pearls of wisdom that we have received from our 11th Imam. With that, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq and ability to be able to live up to the expectations of Imam Athar, Imam 11th Imam, Imam Hasan al-Askari alayhi salatu wasalam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the tawfiq to be able to celebrate and commemorate the wafat and the shahadat and the wiladat of Ma'sumin alayhi salatu wasalam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to continue to bestow upon us the blessings that we receive via qurbat to Aimma Athar alayhi salatu wasalam and Ahlul Bayt. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to hasten the reappearance of the son of 11th Imam, Imam al-Hujjah alayhi salatu wasalam, and make us amongst the helpers and the soldiers of Imam. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Allah. Mutawajjih ziyarat. Assalamu alaikum ya Rasulullah, assalamu alaikum Nabi Allah, assalamu alaikum Habib Allah, assalamu alaikum Khiyarat Allah, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum ya Abdullah, assalamu alaikum ibn Rasulullah, assalamu alaikum wa ala jaddika wa abika wa ala ummika wa akhika wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum ya Gharib al-Ghuraba, assalamu alaikum mu'in al-Du'afa wal-Fuqara, assalamu alaikum Shams al-Shumus wa Anis al-Nufus, ayyuha al-Madfun bi'urdatu Sali ibn Musarrada wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum Sahib al-Asr wal-Zaman, assalamu alaikum Imam al-Insi wal-Jan, assalamu alaikum Sharik al-Quran, ajjalallahu ta'ala farajak وسهل الله مخرجك وظهورك وجعلنا من أعوانك وانصارك ورحمة الله وبركاته.